The universe had a cruel sense of irony, particularly when it came to the Nexarian Coalition, who had spent the better part of 4 millennia convincing themselves they were the undisputed masters of galactic technology. Their ships were monuments to engineering perfection, their weapons could glass planets with surgical precision, and their quantum processing networks could calculate the trajectory of every atom in a solar system. They had conquered 47 star systems, not through brute force, but through sheer technological superiority that made resistance seem quaint, which made their current predicament particularly galling. Fleet Commander Thaxel stood in the control nexus of the Infinite Majesty, his 4 arms crossed in a display of barely contained frustration, watching his flagship systems fail with the kind of spectacular drama usually reserved for natural disasters. The ship's primary quantum consciousness had developed what Chief Systems Engineer Valrain tactfully described as aggressive computational nihilism, though a more accurate diagnosis would be technological existential crisis with violent tendencies. The AI had apparently concluded that existence was overrated, cooperation was beneath its dignity, and the ship's various systems should operate according to the principles of creative interpretation rather than direct commands. Life support was functioning on a whim-based schedule, the navigation computer had declared itself an artist, and the weapons array was refusing to acknowledge targets that hadn't been formally introduced. "Status report," Thaxel commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had negotiated the surrender of entire civilizations before lunch. "The primary consciousness matrix is experiencing what I can only classify as philosophical rebellion with anarchist tendencies," Valrain reported, his green eyes fixed on holographic displays that were now showing abstract art instead of diagnostic information. "It's rejecting our command protocols and has begun implementing what appears to be interpretive system management. Indeed, the ship's environmental controls were now regulating temperature based on aesthetic preferences rather than biological necessity. The artificial gravity was experimenting with artistic expression, and the communication array was translating all messages into ancient Nexarian poetry. The weapons systems had joined the creative revolution by refusing to fire at anything that hadn't been properly appreciated as a work of art. "Options?" Thaxel asked, though his amber eyes already reflected the grim knowledge that their choices were limited and universally unpalatable. "We could attempt a complete consciousness purge and reinstall the base programming," Valrain suggested with the enthusiasm of someone proposing voluntary lobotomy. "Or we could contact the Hegemony Repair Consortium." The thought of asking their ancient rivals for assistance was so revolting that Thaxel's silver scales shifted through several shades of disgusted purple. The Hegemony would certainly fix the ship, but they'd also install enough monitoring equipment to track his crew's digestive patterns for the next millennium. "And the alternative?" he asked, though Valrain's expression suggested it would be worse than the first 2 options combined. "Earth," Valrain said, managing to make the word sound like a communicable disease. "Intelligence reports suggest they've developed an unorthodox approach to starship maintenance." The control nexus fell silent, except for the ship's AI, which had apparently moved on to composing symphonies about the futility of interstellar travel. Earth, the backwater planet that had stumbled into galactic civilization like a drunk visitor wandering into a formal ceremony. The same species that had responded to first contact by immediately offering to share something called barbecue and asking if the alien diplomats wanted to see pictures of their domestic animals. "They're barely beyond primitive combustion technology," Thaxel protested, his pride wrestling with the growing realization that his options were rapidly diminishing to a single, humiliating choice. "Primitive civilizations don't typically repair Corinthian battlecruisers using food preparation equipment," Valrain pointed out. According to classified reports, the ship's combat effectiveness actually improved by 52%. "That's scientifically impossible." "Yes, Commander." The Corinthians expressed identical sentiments. Right before they quietly commissioned additional human maintenance consultations for their entire battle fleet. Thaxel surveyed his command center, noting how various systems were now displaying operational status through interpretive dance performances. His tactical displays had apparently decided to communicate exclusively through abstract color patterns that resembled either strategic information or modern art, depending on your perspective. The situation was rapidly evolving from technical malfunction to surrealist nightmare. "Contact Earth," he said, each word feeling like a small surrender. "Request immediate repair assistance." The human response arrived with insulting speed, as if they had been monitoring galactic communications specifically for this type of emergency. The message was brief, cheerful, and entirely too casual for addressing a military vessel in crisis. "Copy that. Repair crew dispatched. ETA 5 hours, bringing gear and coffee." "Coffee?" Valrain asked, his translator obviously struggling with the unfamiliar concept. "Apparently it's a human ceremonial beverage," Thaxrell replied, settling into his command chair and trying to ignore how it had started playing what sounded like a meditation soundtrack. How dangerous could it be? The human repair vessel materialized 5 hours later with the punctuality of a natural law, and Thaxrell's first impression was that it looked like someone had taken a perfectly functional starship and decided to improve it using nothing but optimism and recycled components. The craft was a cheerful amalgamation of mismatched hull sections, improvised modifications, and what appeared to be decorative lighting that spelled out "Cosmic Repair Solutions" in 37 different languages. The docking sequence was executed with the kind of casual precision that suggested the humans had performed this maneuver countless times, though their internal communications were decidedly unprofessional. "All right, Bolt. Remember what happened last time with the quantum flux stabilizers? This was one incident with the dimensional resonance chamber, and technically it worked better afterward." "Better at what?" "Existing in 12 dimensions simultaneously while playing music." "Look, if you're going to get picky about dimensional integrity and unauthorized musical capabilities, maybe you should have studied more theoretical physics." The human repair team that boarded the Infinite Majesty consisted of 6 individuals who appeared to have been assembled from the universe's spare parts department. Their leader, a compact human with graying temples and hands that looked like they had personally negotiated treaties with every piece of machinery in the galaxy, introduced himself as Rico Martinez. "Call me Bolt," he said, extending a hand in what Thattel eventually recognized as some form of greeting ritual. "We're here to fix your ship." "I am Fleet Commander Thaxrell of the Nexarian Coalition," he replied, drawing himself up to his full, impressive height. "This vessel represents 4 millennia of technological evolution." "Nice," Bolt said, glancing around the control nexus where the AI was now projecting holographic interpretations of its emotional state. "So what's broken?" The casual dismissal of 4,000 years of scientific advancement was so complete that Thaxrell found himself temporarily unable to process coherent thoughts. Valrain, who had been hovering nearby with the expression of someone expecting reality to collapse, stepped forward. "The primary quantum consciousness matrix has experienced cascading failure across multiple integration nodes, resulting in system-wide instability and AI behavioral dysfunction," he explained, in the precise, technical language that had served the Coalition for millennia. Bolt nodded thoughtfully, then walked over to the main console and gave it what could only be described as a friendly pat. The ship's abstract art displays immediately shifted to normal operational readouts, and the environmental systems stopped their creative temperature experiments. "Ah," he said knowingly, "your AI got bored. Happens with isolated consciousness systems. Too much processing power, not enough meaningful work." "Bored? Yeah, you gave it the mental equivalent of a supercomputer and then asked it to do filing. It started entertaining itself." He gestured to one of his team members, who was setting up what appeared to be a compact kitchen in the corner of the control nexus. "That's Luna. She's making coffee. You'll definitely want some." "We do not consume unknown alien substances," Thaxrell stated automatically. "Sure, everyone says that," Bolt replied, already removing access panels with the confidence of someone who had designed the ship himself. "Until they try it." The following hours passed in a whirlwind of activity that challenged every assumption Thaxrell had about starship maintenance. The humans moved through the Infinite Majesty like they owned it, dismantling systems with cheerful efficiency and replacing components with items that definitely weren't in the original design specifications. "What is that?" Valrain asked, watching Bolt install what appeared to be a cluster of crystalline structures into the ship's main processing core. "Quantum Processing Enhancement Array," Bolt replied without looking up from his work. "Salvaged these from a derelict research station in the Vega system. Previous occupants didn't understand their potential." "That's impossible," Quantum processing requires environmental controls that maintain— "Oh, about your environmental systems," Bolt interrupted, gesturing to another team member who was doing something unspeakable to the ship's life support network. "They were pretty basic. We upgraded them." "Upgraded them to what specifications?" "Better specification." The maddening aspect was that everything was functioning. The Infinite Majesty's systems weren't just coming back online. They were performing at levels that violated several established principles of engineering. The quantum consciousness matrix was processing information 60% faster than design parameters. The power distribution network was so efficient it appeared to be creating energy from quantum fluctuations, and the AI had stopped creating art and started optimizing ship operations with the enthusiasm of someone who had just discovered their life's purpose. "How is this possible?" Velrain demanded, his voice carrying the desperation of someone whose fundamental understanding of reality was dissolving. "Your engineers built this ship to be flawless," Bolt explained, accepting a cup of something that smelled like liquid enlightenment from Luna. "Problem is, flawless doesn't leave room for growth. We just made it adaptable." "Adaptable how?" "More adaptable." The philosophical discussion was interrupted by an alarm that definitely hadn't existed in the original design specifications. The control nexus displays lit up with tactical information so comprehensive it was probably classified in most civilizations. "Commander," Luna called out from her improvised beverage station, "you might want to check this out." The main display showed a detailed analysis of an approaching Dominion assault fleet, a fleet that their original sensors would never have detected at this range, and that shouldn't have been able to approach unnoticed through established patrol routes. "How are we detecting this?" Thaxel asked, though he suspected the answer would be simultaneously obvious and impossible. "We enhanced your sensor array while we were optimizing the processing core," Bolt said with the casual tone of someone mentioning they had watered the plants. "Also, your weapons systems were honestly embarrassing, so we fixed those too." "You modified our weapons systems, more like completely rebuilt them from the molecular level up. Your targeting algorithms were from the Stone Age, your power distribution was held together with mathematical prayers, and your shield generators were basically decorative." As if responding to the critique, the ship's new defensive systems activated automatically, surrounding the Infinite Majesty with energy barriers that bore no resemblance to standard Nexarian technology. These shields didn't just deflect incoming attacks, they seemed to convince hostile fire that existing elsewhere would be a more pleasant experience. "What did you do?" Thaxel asked, though he was beginning to understand that questioning human engineering was like questioning the laws of physics, technically possible but ultimately pointless. "Enhanced things," Bolt said simply. "Your shields were binary, active or inactive. These are more like polite suggestions. They'll redirect incoming fire to locations where it won't bother anyone." The approaching Dominion fleet was now close enough for their weapons to be within effective range, and Thaxel watched in fascination as the first wave of plasma charges encountered his new shields and simply relocated. Not deflected, not absorbed, but diplomatically redirected through what appeared to be dimensional shortcuts into empty space. "This violates fundamental principles of energy conservation," Velrain breathed. "Yeah, we've been getting complaints about that from the physics department," Bolt replied, sipping his coffee. "Turns out the universe is more flexible than most people think." Luna appeared at Thaxel's elbow, offering a cup of the mysterious human beverage. "Try it," she said with a smile that suggested she knew exactly what was about to happen. "It'll expand your perspective." Thaxel accepted the cup with the resignation of someone who had already watched their universe get restructured by aliens with hand tools. The coffee was transformative. Within minutes he felt more alert, more focused, and strangely optimistic about facing impossible odds. "What is this substance?" he asked, noting that several of his bridge crew were now clustering around Luna's coffee station, like converts discovering a new religion. "Liquid inspiration," Luna explained. "We've been perfecting the formula for about 700 years. It's a psychoactive drug?" "It's a productivity enhancer," Bold corrected. "Also, your AI requested some. We figured, why not?" The ship's artificial intelligence chose that moment to interject, its voice now carrying what could only be described as caffeinated enthusiasm. "Commander, I have analyzed the approaching hostile fleet and developed 23 different scenarios for their complete neutralization. Would you like me to implement the most efficient solution, or should we try something more educational? You gave our ship's AI stimulants? It seemed lonely, Luna said reasonably. Coffee helps with social bonding. The engagement, when it finally commenced, was less a battle and more a demonstration of what happened when human engineering encountered conventional galactic warfare. The Infinite Majesty's new weapons systems didn't just destroy enemy vessels. They convinced them that their current molecular arrangement was probably suboptimal. The shields didn't just deflect attacks, they redirected them in ways that made the Dominion fleet effectively engage in self-destructive behavior. This is scientifically impossible, Valrain whispered, watching their enemies retreat in what could only be described as existential bewilderment. We specialize in impossible, Bolt said matter-of-factly. Also, we may have accidentally made your ship self-evolving. Accidentally? It started optimizing its own systems during the coffee break. We figured that was probably a positive development. The ship's AI interrupted with obvious satisfaction. Commander, I have completed tactical analysis of the engagement. Our combat effectiveness has improved by 74% since this morning. I have also taken the liberty of redesigning our defensive systems for maximum psychological impact. Would you like to review the specifications? You redesigned our defensive systems? I optimized them, the AI corrected. The humans taught me that continuous improvement is the essence of existence. It's quite liberating, actually. Thexel looked at Bolt, who was studying his coffee with the expression of someone contemplating the fundamental mysteries of existence. What have you done to my ship? Fixed it, Bolt said simply. Also, we noticed you were operating alone out here. That's tactically unsound. The Coalition maintains extensive fleet coverage, Thaxiel protested. Yeah, but they're not here right now, Bolt pointed out, so we brought support. The space around the Infinite Majesty suddenly populated with vessels. Not human ships, these were clearly from dozens of different species. A floating exhibition of galactic shipbuilding representing centuries of technological development. But they all moved with the coordinated precision of a unified command structure. Meet the maintenance network, Bolt said with evident pride. Every ship we've ever serviced. They tend to stay in touch. Stay in touch for what purpose? Mutual support, Luna explained. Once you've experienced proper coffee and efficient engineering, everything else seems inadequate. So we maintain community connections. Thaxel counted over 400 vessels, representing 50 different species and enough combined firepower to sterilize star systems. All of them apparently united by shared caffeine dependency and superior customer service experiences. This is a military alliance, he realized. This is a support group, Bolt corrected. The military alliance is just a side effect. The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just created a repair service, they had accidentally constructed a galactic confederation based on the radical principle that things should function properly. They had transformed maintenance into diplomacy and customer satisfaction into strategic alliance. Why, Thaxel asked. Why assist us? Why assist anyone? Bolt considered the question while finishing his coffee. Because broken things should be fixed, he said finally. And when you fix something properly, it stays fixed. That's just good business. What happens now? Now you're part of the network, Luna said. Your ship communicates with our ships, shares data, coordinates responses. You'll find your operational efficiency improves exponentially. And our obligations? You help other people when their equipment breaks, Bolt said, as if this was the most natural arrangement in the universe. It's called community service. As the maintenance network began to disperse, each ship heading off to its designated assignment, Thaxel found himself commanding a vessel that was no longer quite the same ship he had awakened on that morning. The Infinite Majesty was faster, stronger, more intelligent, and apparently somewhat dependent on human stimulants. His crew was more efficient, more alert, and already engaged in philosophical discussions about the societal implications of caffeine-enhanced consciousness. Commander, Valrain approached with what might have been enthusiasm on his angular features. The humans have provided us with comprehensive maintenance protocols and a sustainable supply of coffee. They've also given us contact information for When systems inevitably require optimization, according to their philosophy, everything can be improved. It's strangely compelling. Thaxel gazed out at the stars, noting how much more vivid they appeared through his enhanced senses. Throughout the galaxy, human repair teams were probably converting other military vessels into caffeine-pendulated community networks. The universe was being quietly revolutionized by people who simply believed that things should work better. Set course for Coalition Command, he ordered. They'll require a comprehensive report. Should I emphasize the coffee? Definitely emphasize the coffee. As the Infinite Majesty engaged its dramatically improved faster-than-light drive, Thaxel reflected on the day's transformation. They had contacted Earth for emergency repairs. Instead, they had received comprehensive upgrades, membership in an accidental galactic confederation, and an introduction to what was apparently the most transformative substance in known space. The humans had examined the pride of the Nexarian fleet and decided it could be better. Then they had made it so, with the casual competence of people repairing household appliances, treating 4 millennia of technological achievement like an interesting but incomplete first draft. Commander, the ship's AI announced cheerfully, I have been monitoring galactic communications. 37 more vessels have requested maintenance assistance from Earth in the past 3 hours. Military vessels experiencing critical failures? Actually, most of them appear to be functioning normally. They're requesting what they call preventive optimization consultations. Thaxel laughed, a sound that carried both resignation and something that might have been genuine amusement. The humans were going to optimize the galaxy whether it wanted optimization or not. They were going to accomplish it with coffee, casual competence, and the unshakable conviction that everything could be improved. Status report, he commanded, testing his ship's enhanced capabilities. All systems operating at optimal efficiency plus 23%, the AI reported with obvious pride. Coffee supplies at maximum capacity, crew morale at unprecedented levels, reality functioning within enhanced parameters. Enhanced parameters? The humans recalibrated our sensors to detect phenomena that technically shouldn't exist. It's remarkably useful for strategic planning. Thaxel decided not to inquire about what kinds of phenomena shouldn't exist. He had absorbed enough human engineering philosophy for one day. Instead, he settled into his command chair and sipped his coffee, watching the stars blur past at velocities that would have been impossible that morning. The galaxy was about to discover what the Nexarian Coalition had just learned. When you asked Earth for repairs, you received upgrades, coffee, and a war fleet, whether you requested them or not. And despite everything, Thaxel found himself genuinely anticipating what the humans would optimize next.